Healing conversation about the benefits, challenges, and real life struggles of living healthy, well, fit, and free. Real discussion for real people who want real change. My Better Living. This podcast is being broadcast on Power Plug Radio, home of your throwback jams. You can download Power Plug Radio app on Google Play or the Apple iStore. Don't forget to subscribe to the Power Plug Radio YouTube, where you can catch My Better Living live every Tuesday night. And visit www.powerplugradio.com to find out how you can sponsor the next episode. My Better Living. Spend some time with Nurse Shar for honest and healing conversation about the benefits, challenges, and real life struggles of living healthy, well, fit, and free. Real discussion for real people who want real change. My Better Living. This podcast is being broadcast on Power Plug Radio, home of your throwback jams. You can download Power Plug Radio app on Google Play or the Apple iStore. Don't forget to subscribe to the Power Plug Radio YouTube, where you can catch My Better Living live every Tuesday night. And visit www.powerplugradio.com to find out how you can sponsor the next episode. My Better Living. Spend some time with Nurse Shar for honest and healing conversation about the benefits, challenges, and real life struggles of living healthy, well, fit, and free. Real discussion for real people who want real change. My Better Living. This podcast is being broadcast on Power Plug Radio, home of your throwback jams. You can download Power Plug Radio app on Google Play or the Apple iStore. Don't forget to subscribe to the Power Plug Radio YouTube, where you can catch My Better Living live every Tuesday night. And visit www.powerplugradio.com to find out how you can sponsor the next episode.
You're listening to Power Plug Radio, home of your throwback jams.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of My Better Living podcast. I am Nurse Shar, and this is my lovely co-host,
Latricia Ali.
Hey, Latricia Ali. Hey, I don't know why I like to say that, but welcome back to My Better Living, episode 13. And today we're going to tackle childhood trauma. However, I just want to say it's good to see you again. It's good to see you. Welcome to May. Shout out to everyone watching live on the Power Plug Radio socials. This podcast can be played back later on Spotify or on My Better Living website, www.mybetterliving.llc.com. Please make sure that you download the Power Plug Radio app so that you can get some of the best mixes this weekend and every day at lunchtime. Make sure you download the Power Plug Radio app for your best throwback mixes this weekend. April, we're going to kind of close out April a little bit. We were just having this conversation. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so this month, we're really going to tackle just some different topics surrounding mental health. The theme for this month is Your Mind Matters, because it does. And you've heard my wonderful co-host talk a lot about calming your mind, calming your heart. And so we're just going to talk about, a couple things. We're going to talk about childhood trauma. We're going to talk about the benefits of therapy. So the Women of Wellness are coming back next week to talk about the benefits of therapy. We're going to talk about foods that boost your mood. That's going to be fun, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Always fun to talk about food.
And then we got Melissa Rowland coming back at the end of the month. to talk about stress management. And speaking of
Wonderful.
stress, we were just talking about how busy April was, and I wonder if they named May Mental Health Awareness Month because of how stressful April is. It's like the turn of the season. You're entering a new quarter of the year. Things are changing, warming up. People are coming outside a little bit. They're peeking their heads out, and so for me, April was a little bit stressful, but we're back on track. What about you?
Yes, kind of just finding your groove. Yes, because April's really the first month where not the first month, but you can really feel the seasons change or the energy just change. Like it just becomes different. You know how things just feel different in different parts of the year?
Right.
For everybody, right? So I think it's one of those things. I think you're onto something.
Right. So, me personally, very busy April, but very busy in a very good way. And so, coming out of there, we're getting closer to summertime. So I'm just going to check in with everybody. Where are you? Check in. How are you feeling going into May? What's changed for you? What's the same for you? What are some things that you're still working on? Because, we're all works in progress, you know? So drop us some lines down in the chat if you are watching this live. But if you're not watching this live and you're listening to the playback, think about that. What's changed for you? What's different? I think going into a new quarter or going into a new season is always a good time for reflection and just looking back and seeing how, you want to move forward and, what you want to do, with yourself and, how you want to progress forward, and in what way. So I think that's always
right.
a good time.
Seeing if you want to keep, that's what we always have to do. Self-evaluation.
Right.
Like seeing if you like the way things are going and if not, change it.
Absolutely.
And we forget that sometimes it's just that simple. If you don't like something, change it.
Absolutely. If you don't like something, change it.
Change it.
Sometimes it might be hard, but keep working at changing it, because that time when the little things and little steps that you're taking in order to change something, I think, the universe kind of spits that back to you. So even those little things that you do with good intentions to change or heal or whatever, I think it's beneficial.
Yeah, and sometimes the only thing you can change is your perspective. And that changes a lot of things. So if you can't physically change it, if it's not within your control to change, you can always change your perspective.
Absolutely. So this month, Mental Health Awareness Month, and so we're going to talk a little bit about some things that may, impact our mental health. And today we're focused on childhood trauma. And if you're watching live, please leave us some comments or some words, contribute to this conversation if you choose to. And if you're at home and you're listening to the playback, and you're listening with a group of people, join in the conversation amongst yourselves as well. So the Nurses Station is back. And so, of course, we're talking about childhood trauma and how it may impact you as an adult. And this is sponsored by the Bird Cares. The Bird Cares nonprofit organization dealing with the challenges of today require problem solvers who bring different perspectives and are willing to take risks. The Bird Cares emerged out of a pursuit to inspire and support the community and a desire for actions to speak louder than words. Established in 2017, they are an organization driven by progressive ideas, bold action, and a strong foundation of support. The Bird Cares is dedicated to improving health outcomes in high-risk communities, one message and event at a time. The mission is to inspire health and behavioral changes among families and communities through health promotion, target marketing, and education. Let the Bird Cares take your health message from idea to reality. So thank you to the Bird Cares for sponsoring this episode. Talking a little bit about childhood trauma. But speaking of children, you just recently hosted a very wonderful event featuring some very wonderful children.
Yes.
Let's talk about that for a minute.
Well, Keys to the Universe, Inc., which is a nonprofit that provides piano lessons and music theory classes to children and underprivileged people. So we we just had our first annual piano recital, and it was the bomb. The children were super excited. Everybody did well. The turnout was great, and now I've got an influx of requests. So, I'm getting to them all.
That's awesome. That's
Yes,
awesome.
yes.
That's awesome. Like, and when you talked a little about that, and I said to myself, those are the things that they're going to remember, and those are good memories.
Yes.
Those are good memories to have, to be a part of that as a kid.
Yes.
And so, our topic today is about childhood trauma. And let's kind of dive into this because, when I put this out there on the socials, a couple people chimed in that, very important. This is something that we need to talk about. And so, which makes me think that there are people that really want to tap into, this discussion of childhood trauma and, kind of what it looks like for. So just a little bit, I like my stats, right? I like my stats. And so I found this from the, and for those of you watching, yes, I have papers here. I'm old school. I like to do my research and my homework. But this one comes from the Institute for Advanced Psychiatry, which says that more than 2/3 or 66% of children report at least one traumatic event by the age of 16. And, people ask, okay, well, what's a traumatic event? So this is the same Institute for Psychiatry that, really is talking about, some common traumatic events, but of course there are others that, may not always be just this list, but that could include childhood sexual or physical abuse, witnessing domestic violence, bullying, community or school violence, natural disasters. Let's hold on to that one. Natural disasters, loss of a loved one, neglect, serious illness, or accident. So any of these things or categories of things, and probably more that I did not mention that's on this list, can be considered, can leave an impact on a child under the classification of childhood trauma.
Yes.
It could be very, traumatic.
Absolutely.
And I don't remember, like, when I was, well, of course you were young, so I'm like, well, I don't remember people talking about childhood trauma.
Well, culturally, for a lot of us, that's swept under the
Talk
rug.
about it.
Like, you'll get over it, or you'll be resilient, or you don't know what you're talking about, or you don't. Children are often swept to the side, so naturally their trauma will be too.
Right.
Or what they're going through.
And to me, it's some of these things on this list is just unavoidable. Like a natural disaster. It made me think about COVID and what we went through with COVID, and the fact that there are some kids who are probably traumatized by, COVID, having to be, under lockdown. Sometimes for kids, going to school may be like their only refuge or their only time away from home to get a decent meal, to get and during that time of lockdown or whatever, that may have been difficult, maybe to get away from whatever was going on in the house. But even just the pandemic itself, and the idea that, for like a year, kids didn't socialize in person with other kids unless they had siblings.
Yeah.
I guess that could be pretty traumatic.
There were, I actually saw something that was really crazy, how some 4-year-olds are having their first birthday party because everybody was locked down before. So they never had like a birthday party. And there's really a string of videos recording them reacting to people singing and stuff with the cake because they've never had a party or been to one because everyone had been separated for 2 years. And it's absolutely wild. It's stuff you don't think about. It's like they never had a birthday party.
Wow, that is amazing. That is amazing. But I mean, some of it is just like a when I think of trauma, I think of just like an overload of stress.
Oh, yes.
That just really leaves a imprint on you and an imprint on your life. There are some things that they talk about here about recognizing signs of, childhood trauma, because unchecked trauma just, becomes adult dysfunction. Unchecked childhood, unhealed childhood trauma becomes adult dysfunction in some way. And it can also affect your health and well-being. So, I'm all about really kind of getting down to the source here. Post-traumatic stress disorder. A lot of times we think about that and we think about people who go to war, military. Do you have any people in your family that have gone to the military that have suffered from?
My husband is a veteran, and he's diagnosed with PTSD.
Right. And I know adults that have gone to, adults older than me that have gone to the military, especially back then, like Vietnam and or whatever, and really suffered some traumas. And but a lot of times when you think about PTSD, that's what you think about. You think about people who go to the military, but you don't necessarily think about PTSD in the terms of someone who just suffered like just childhood trauma that, in their home, or and it may not develop in everybody who's had traumatic experiences, depending on what it is.
Yes.
But it can. And so some signs of PTSD, just keep reliving the event, flashback nightmares. And this could be for anything. This could be for any of those categories of events. So if you were, sexually assaulted or physically abused, or you were witnessing domestic violence, reliving those events again, avoidance, anxiety, depression, anger, problems with trust, or, really self-destructive, risky behavior and withdrawals. All of these are signs of like PTSD and really dealing with just traumatic events. So this is some of the things that people are dealing with on a daily basis based on, childhood trauma and issues that they've dealt with in their past. And they don't even know it. That's the trick to it.
Yeah.
Right? It's so, they tell you to get help as soon as you can. But a lot of times when this is happening, you don't even know what it is, or it may be more than one thing. It's hard,
Yes. And it may have grown so many layers and grown so much. Because that's the thing about childhood trauma that is so funky. Because if the later that it's, that you're aware of it, the more layers it has. Because once you have that trauma, you start to make decisions out of that trauma. So then your life goes the direction of the trauma, like literally, because you're going to create the way you act, or what you act upon. So if they're already thinking that, I'm not enough, or I'm not smart enough and everything, they are going to act out that. And your life will end up usually where you think,
the mind is powerful. Your mind matters. We're going to talk about these things. So some of the things that they say that as an adult you may experience or see how this unchecked childhood trauma plays out as you get an adult is in one area is in your attachments or your relationships. So how you attach or detach from people. And a lot of times, with kids, it said that they don't really have a frame of reference. So if their household is dysfunctional, they think that that's normal. Until as an adult, perhaps you're around a healthy family, or you raise your children in a healthy family, and you realize, holy crap, like that was not normal. That wasn't supposed to happen. And so sometimes it takes time to get there, but you can see that in how people attach to situations, how they detach from people, because some traumatic events can create a mistrust in people, especially depending on the person who was causing the trauma.
Yes.
If the person was your immediate caregiver, that can really cause some distrust with you and people. So that can be played out definitely in adulthood. We see that a lot. We see that.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, yes. Even causing a distrust in yourself.
Right.
Like not thinking that you can make the right decisions and
Right.
stuff like that. But yeah,
Or just, in people who just can't maintain healthy relationships with
Yes,
people. You ever
because they
meet
just
people
don't-
like that
yeah,
where they just are
yeah.
always like falling out with somebody, or
Always,
always
yeah.
like where they can't maintain healthy relationships with people? A lot of that could be childhood trauma
yeah.
playing out that they just don't know. Another area that childhood trauma can come out in adulthood is in sort of like your emotional responses. So, uncontrollable anger, anxiety about what's to happen,
Yes.
or, depression, withdrawal, and an inability to sort of control your emotions about what's
Getting triggered
happening,
easy.
getting
Yes.
triggered easily, So a lot of those are emotional responses
Yes.
to trauma that can be seen in adulthood.
Right. In addition to that, maybe being how you saw emotions being played out. So not only is the conditioning there because you think it's normal, but you also are missing the triggers, and that you're being triggered and things like that. So it's very tricky.
Right.
Sheesh, it's so
Right.
tricky.
Another way, and another category, final category in which childhood trauma can play out in your adulthood is in your physical health. And so, a lot of those emotions can lead to poor choices just in, your health. You're more likely to, these people were more likely to be diabetic in adulthood, have coronary artery disease, asthma, stroke. When I was in nursing school, we watched this video about stress, and like when kids are young, if they undergo stress, and how it just really kind of transforms what's going on in your body.
Yes.
It's almost like your body's in a constant fight or flight mode.
Yes.
So what does that release? That release cortisol. You get that nice little spare tire, and a lot of times it's just
Goodness.
because you're stressed to the max, and your body thinks that there's a fire all the time. And
It can't focus on anything but survival. It's not focusing on their highest development because, the body is amazing, but it can really only do one thing at a time.
it can.
Just like
You really
it's-
should only want it to do one thing at a time.
Yeah.
I mean, the essentials, they're gonna, go.
Right,
But
right.
taking care of processes in your body,
Yeah. Let every system do what it's supposed to do. But if your system has to, we talked about this, worry about killing off infection, it can't worry about healing you as quickly.
Exactly.
Just things like that.
Absolutely. All right. So let's talk about, I like to do my harsh truths. I was going through some of the things. So here is 8 reasons. We're going to roll with this one today. And then we're going to do my harsh truth. So 8 reasons why it's so hard to overcome a tough childhood. There's a lot of people that are, and when you get to adulthood, for me, I've experienced my own childhood trauma, and it really did take me being an adult to get the help that I needed in order to deal with it and still continue to deal with it, and continue to heal from it. But it took so long to recognize, because you think that, okay, I'm trying to keep everything in control and everything. And then suddenly you realize, okay, I'm in a space because something's broken. And why am I in this space? Why am I in this sort of vortex right now? It's because something's broken, and you have to go back and you can't necessarily go back and fix it, but you can go back and heal the parts of you that were broken behind it, things that, as a child that you tell yourself, almost, everybody has self-talk, and, we think that children, one day they turn 18 and, a light bulb goes off and they start talking internally. They have their internal dialogue. No, they're having intern because they're trying to figure out what the heck is going on from young, So they're having internal dialogue with themselves, and because that's how they make decisions. And so, when you become an adult, that internal dialogue, that's like been imprinted on you because you've imprinted it on yourself. And so you have to undo that.
Yes.
And that can be difficult.
It comes with the
so 8 reasons. These are 8 reasons. And this, I want to make sure that I'm giving the people their due credit because they did all the work. I'm just telling you what they said. I'm doing the research. They did the research and I'm just bringing it to the masses. This is from psychologytoday.com. Dr. David Sack. I want to make sure I, give credit where credit is due. 8 reasons it's so hard to overcome a tough childhood. So we're going to go through some of these. Let's talk a little bit about it. The traumatized person may be slow to realize the source of their pain. So, we kind of talked about that a little bit, where, you may not have a frame of reference about what's normal and not normal as a child. I mean, you just fresh. You new. You're real new.
Yes.
You're just in the world. Like, they just spit you out. And now you here.
Yes.
So, you don't really have a frame of reference as to, life didn't come with a manual. So a lot of times it's hard.
Parents underestimate. I was one of those parents at one point. It had to dawn on me one day. You underestimate how much you are your child's first teacher. You are your child's first role model. Like they learn so much from you.
Yes.
Even to the point where they pick up our mannerisms.
Yes.
Like you've seen a child do things like their parent or grab things a certain way. So if we perhaps, would be more aware of that, it would change a lot of things.
I had a realization about that probably when my daughter was like 7 or 8, and I was like, things were really crazy for me, and I was like, I think I was in nursing school or I was finishing nursing school or some form of trying to be a nurse and trying to do this and I was having little mini meltdowns, and I had to. One day I just looked up and she was staring at me, and I was like, "Girl, you gotta pull yourself together."
It hit you right there.
Yeah, like pull it together.
Absolutely.
I had to pull it together. But you're right.
Thankful, and I'm thankful for that moment because it just,
yeah.
It's great to know.
It is. And, you want to hear great memories, spit back at you. Hey, Mom, you remember when we did? Or, hey, remember when we did? If that's being spit back at you, then you're like, okay, I'm on to something good here.
Yes.
But a lot of times, those kids, they don't really understand the trauma and, I think even or slow to understand the trauma, especially when no one's told them they've been traumatized. Like, I think it's probably rare that a parent will be like, I traumatized you when you were younger. I think you need to go get some help. Let's talk about this.
Oh my goodness.
They're usually in denial.
Can I say something about that?
Yes.
I think that's another reason why a lot of childhood trauma can't be healed, because the parent that caused the childhood trauma won't take accountability for it. And I've had this conversation with my daughter. Okay. I said, listen, I am literally doing the best I can. If I ever need to attend therapy with you when you get older because I did something unknowingly to you that was traumatizing, you let me know. I will be there with the tissue, whatever we need to do, because I want you to heal.
Right.
That my feelings or my lack of taking accountability doesn't weigh more than your healing.
Right. Absolutely. That was nice transparency as a parent. Help me.
Listen, whatever you need.
Help me.
Because it was never my intention to traumatize her. If there was anything, so you call me and we in there.
Because it really doesn't work that way. When you were younger, you used to think that there was going to be a moment in life when you're going to be an adult. Like, boop, I'm an adult. And everything would be adult. Whatever that meant, everything would just be boop, perfect. or in its place or
Oh, my
something like that.
goodness.
And it doesn't work that way. Like you're constantly working to be an adult.
You're constantly
and fighting not to go back and crawl in your mama's house.
or looking for an adult that's doing a better job at adulting than you, so you can ask them some
Right.
questions. Like,
You're constantly working at being an adult, and so when you make that realization, you're right. You're looking down on the children, and sometimes, unfortunately, a lot of adults, didn't make that realization when they had kids. But again, sometimes the trauma is unavoidable. So like a pandemic, a hurricane that blows a tornado that blows your whole house down, and now y'all standing there looking at rubble. That's traumatic for a kid. That's unavoidable. And depending on how the family pulls together, it may be a very healing experience in the end, but you're right. You're absolutely right. Another reason they said that it's difficult to overcome a tough childhood is that you may have other problems. So if you seek, drug and alcohol, and now that becomes a really serious addiction, and while you're trying to unaddict yourself, and but it might just be masking the real root of the problem. But maybe you're so focused on the addiction because addiction is just what's really in front of you, and really an obvious source of the dysfunction that might be going on.
And there's a lot of grown children running around. You know what I mean? Because usually, a lot of times you get stuck at the age that your trauma happened. So there's a lot of adults walking around still where the trauma happened. And they can't really interact as an adult because they're literally stuck. So even that touches on children raising children, because you can be an adult by age, but not really mature or wise at mind in raising the children. So that's literally still children raising children.
Arrested development. That's exactly what it is. Another reason why it may be difficult is because overcoming the past may mean you have to actually remember it. And that can be pretty traumatic. I feel like if you're out there and you're dealing with a traumatic childhood experience, and you really want to do the work in order to heal and go through, don't do that alone. Please make sure that you seek out some type of professional help, because it can be sort of a re-traumatizing experience if you have to recall the details, or if you have to recall, in order to get closure, or, that could be pretty difficult.
It definitely is. It's literally it's science to it. Every time you remember something, you relive it. That's where they get remember from. Because the memories, like, they kind of dissipate, and the way you put it back together is remembering it. And you're going to feel those same feelings. They're going to relive it. I mean, it's literally on the books as science. So you're absolutely correct. Absolutely.
So another reason may be hard is because you have to actually get answers from other people. Maybe, it's a why or how, or something's fuzzy. What exactly happened, that day? I just know that somebody was gone, and it could be like a major loss, family lost, or, so it may be looking to get some information from people that either may not want to be accountable, or may not remember themselves, or maybe don't want to remember themselves because it was traumatic for them as well.
Too. Yes. I completely agree. I completely agree with that.
So I think I agree with that. Another reason it is tough to overcome a childhood is because, maybe your emotions are closed off. I think these next two kind of go together. Emotions being closed off, and it's hard to silence that inner voice. That's exactly what I was talking about. You've been telling yourself one thing for so long, in order to overcome or heal, you have to deprogram or reprogram yourself into something else. And that's where the real work, comes in. If you've had a lot of self-talk, negative self-talk about, that stemmed from that situation or whatever trauma you experienced, and you know, you're gonna have to unwrap yourself from that, and that's hard. And especially if your emotions are closed off, if you're not open to it.
Oh my goodness.
If you're not open to it.
It requires so much vulnerability, even to the last point of talking to people. Because
Yeah.
a lot of people like to act like it's not bothering them.
Right.
And in order to ask those questions, it's going to seem like it's bothering you, or that you're trying to get help. And that can be a scary thing.
Yeah.
Because not everybody is on that train.
That's that holding on. You know, you want to hold on to, you know, just that, I don't know, I'm shutting down, and you really have to open yourself up to, you know, those feelings, and really being honest with, okay, what exactly have I been telling myself? You know, what have I told myself, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And that can be a heavy thing. A lot of times you realize, dang, I could have thought differently before.
Wow.
But that's where the compassion comes for ourselves, because, you know, everybody's healing journey is different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, I definitely agree with some of these things, you know, about it being difficult. Next week, the Women of Wellness are coming back. And so I'm really excited for that. They're coming back for episode 14, where we're going to talk about the benefits of therapy and why therapy is helpful, important. You know, definitely if you're dealing with childhood trauma. And, you know, I personally think that therapy is good for anybody, you know, regardless if it's just trauma or whatever. But since we're talking about childhood trauma, again, I don't recommend that you go at sort of healing from that alone. Definitely seek professional help. Tune in next week. We'll tell you how to find a good therapist, and, you know, what to look for, you know, and what you should tune in for, to know that maybe somebody's for you. We're going to bring that information for you. But as far as, you know, the childhood trauma, you know, really, it's important, I think, to completing, you know, my motto, for those of you who follow me on the socials, skinny isn't for everyone, but a healthy mind, body, and soul is. Like, everybody can achieve a healthy mind, a healthy body, and a healthy soul, you know, and just be internally at peace. But sometimes it takes work, and especially if you have experienced a childhood trauma, which, according to the report, 66% of kids have experienced, by the age of 16, some type of trauma.
I feel like the number's higher than that. Number seems low. I mean, I know you did. I believe the statistic, but that number seems very low.
Well, it could be.
Yeah,
I mean, we'll say that's among those being surveyed, because, you know, they certainly didn't ask every single person, but you know, maybe they just tried to get like a good estimate.
Yeah.
So, you know, I like to do hard truths, and this is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we're going to do some hard truths about mental health awareness, but just about mental health in general. You know, this month, I really want to just encourage everyone to take some time out, carve some time aside to do, you know, a check-in, with yourself, check in with a friend. You know how you see I see this post from time to time that people may share on the socials that say, you know, check in with your strong friend, or, you know,
I see that one.
And yeah, do that this month. Check in with your strong friend. You know, this month, check in with somebody who, you know, maybe has been on your mind. You never know what people might be going through. And so, you know, we're going to just talk a little harsh truths about mental health that I think are worth talking about. And this one comes from, these are 9 harsh truths about mental health you need to accept in order to heal. I like that.
Listen up.
And this is from Mental Health Memo, www.mentalhealthmemo. And so we are going to read a few of these. I'm going to read as many as we can. Oh, we said 9. Oh, we have plenty of time. Okay, so number 1, it's always going to be a part of you, and you're always going to have to work on it. So,
Y'all, and healing is an ongoing thing. And just be ready for that. We think we're going to, all right, heal from this, and then we're going to be completely done, completely free forever and ever. We just going to be realistic. You have to keep working at it.
and then really, and it says like unless something is acutely wrong with you, like some type of psychotic break, immediate, some type of schizophrenia or something.
Yes.
If you have some type of underlying like anxiety, depression, some just mental health, issues, it's an ongoing thing. It's something that you are going to have to work on.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I mean, healing is exhausting sometimes. However, it feels really good. It feels good that you're healing, but it can be exhausting,
but it's work
because the ongoing,
It is definitely work. So, I just kind of want to read some of the things that the memo is saying about this. It says the mindset that you try to keep right now is, despite all the difficulties you're facing, continuing to cope, continuing to live your life, and continuing to do that into the future. Sometimes it may be difficult, but you have to think about coping even into the future. So I kind of like that. The next hard truth about mental health is that medicine doesn't necessarily fix you.
Yes. I mean, especially if in those little soft voices they say side effects can be suicide, suicidal thoughts, the schizophrenia, blah, 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 blah. So, no, the medicine probably does not always kill you.
Right. And the, medication, I think, again, if you're acutely ill, it definitely does help. But, sometimes if you're dealing with, let's just say, depression, and there's a root cause of the depression, while the medicine may help you initially, maybe come off suicidal thoughts if the depression is really bad. So it's other healing ways. It's other ways that you're going to need to heal instead of just popping that pill.
Absolutely. It's almost like, pretty much. Yeah, you can't cover it up.
Right.
And that's what medication does. Sometimes it dulls it. I mean, but there's still the underlying root, as you said.
Right. Mental health truth number 3. Nobody can save you but yourself.
That's for sure.
I mean, it seems like a harsh thing to say, but it is true. You really have to kind of put in your work, and sometimes putting in that work, that first step may be just to call somebody or say, I need help. Sometimes that's the helping yourself part. That's the saving yourself part. If you have gone through withdrawals and you have been avoiding others, they may not necessarily know what's going on with you. And so in order for them to understand what's going on with you is that you have to speak up. Yes. You have to say, hey, time out. Something's wrong. And I think I need to talk to somebody, or something's wrong and I don't know what it is, but I feel off. So
I mean, being vulnerable, being okay with saying something,
being completely vulnerable and willing to and completely vulnerable and casting all pride aside as well.
Yes.
Because it really is like being in a space where I'm putting my need to heal and my need to feel different over how this may look right now.
Yes. Because what matters most is how you feel.
Exactly.
You're laying on that pillow at night.
Right. So that was number 3. It's kind of harsh to hear, but at the same time, I think, the first step is it's almost like, when people are maybe addicted to drugs, and, a lot of times they'll say, oh yeah, in and out of rehabs, family members will send them to rehabs, they'll go in and out. But it's not until they've made that decision by themselves that they're going to go and change their lives that they actually do. And it has to be for them and nobody else.
Yes.
So mental health truth number 4, you can't blame your mental illness for everything. Yeah.
I don't know how much elaboration that needs.
Right. Like, you can't use it as an excuse to purposely be mean to people.
Yes.
You can't, purposely, you use it as an excuse to purposely ruin people's moods. You can't use it as an excuse to just be rude to people.
Yeah, or just be mean.
Yeah.
No.
But again, being vulnerable enough to understand that that's the source of you being mean is because, I got some issues going on inside. Imagine if there was like a collective, speaking of which, I just want to plug this really quick while we're here in this moment. And I remember Liberated and Living Well. Remember that challenge from February? We're still logging actions towards that. So go to thewell.org and sign up. Liberated and Living Well. These are actions. So, as we're talking about, actions that you take to heal and actions that you take to feeling liberated and to live well. Think about that. Go to the website, sign up, log your actions, and partner with some other people. But yeah, you can't blame your mental illness for everything. And you can't use that as an excuse. And I 100% agree with that. This is where it's like, okay, now you got to start doing some work because this is unacceptable.
Right.
All right. So mental health truth number 5. There's no magic cure. There's no magic cure.
If there was, there would probably already be a manual. And there's not.
Right.
Because we're all different.
Right. And there's so many components to that. And again, we're going to talk about therapy next week, and the week after we're going to talk about foods that boost your moods, because even that alone can just, sometimes the foods in and of itself can feed the poor mental health. It can feed the depression, it can feed the anxiety. And so we'll talk about that week after next. I'm so happy to be back. This is exciting. So there's no magic cure. There's no magic cure. There's no magic pill. Sometimes you just have to really attack it at all angles. And, some of it is stress management. Some of it is exercise. Some of it is how you eat. Some of it is, just taking breaks, getting therapy, going on retreats. At some point you just have to prioritize your mental health and, say to yourself, I'm no good if my head's not good, if my mind's not good. I can't control and function. So taking time out for that. So, you might have to combine some things. You might have to go do yoga with Latricia or pole dance. Sometimes you got to get it out, whatever it is.
Yeah. And pole dance is actually a very empowering thing.
Yes. So, you got to find the healing where you can. Right. And there's no magic cure. So this is always going to be a work in progress. And I agree with that. That's a mental health truth. Mental health truth number 6. It can affect those around you.
Most certainly. Yes.
It can affect those around. I mean, hint, childhood trauma. When you've experienced childhood trauma, that's why, they talk about these cycles, these perpetual cycles, and there's, generational, curses or whatever, about, the fact that you're dealing with unhealed childhood trauma. So now you traumatize your kid and now they deal with, so that in and of itself can be, a cycle, a perpetual cycle.
Yes.
That at some point someone's going to have to break in order for this family to heal.
Right. And oftentimes it looks like doing something completely different than what you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And that can be scary.
It can be.
We got to be radical. No, I won't say radical. We have to really be about doing better.
Yes.
In our healing. because there has to be something driving you when you're getting tired
Exactly.
of doing it, because I mean, we're gonna be honest, like healing sometimes does not feel very good.
Exactly.
So you really got to be about it to continue,
And sometimes I just get really concerned, especially now with how, I always say the social media is sort of like a blessing and a curse because, I think I like that more people, cultures are exposed and connected, and people are connecting. Like I can see what's happening in India or wherever, and know that there's people, there's people living really nice in Africa, and there's, and to see how other, so that's really nice information and sharing of knowledge, all great. But it's also, there's this part of it that is manufactured and sort of very superficial, and in and of itself creates, sort of negative self-talk, negative comparison, just the unrealistic frame of reference, that can create some drama when you get to be an adult. You realize the world don't work like that.
Right.
But, at the same time, it's the whole social media and in and of itself can create some issues with, mental health. And so it's important to even sometimes taking a break from that.
Yeah, definitely it does. There's been a few articles published about people experiencing depression from being on Facebook too long, or the longer you scroll, the more apt you are to become depressed. So, and depression is a mental health issue.
Yeah.
So, taking a break. There's something going on called Screen Free Week, where you choose a time where you won't have a screen or anything in front of you every day for like a week. And it's actually a group on Facebook. I think it's for just all this week, I believe. But I know they do it all the time. Yeah.
But I mean, like, how long do you go screen free? An hour, 2 hours, 3 hours?
Well, one person said that they will not be on their phone or in front of a screen. I'm trying to remember. Every time they're eating. They'll have nothing on when they're eating. So not watching TV, not being in their phone, not having a screen in front of them.
Not reading your emails.
Right, while eating. And that actually makes a lot of sense because eating should be a very concentrated thing, So.
Wow. Excellent. So mental health truth number 7. Oh my God, we're getting close to time. There is no shame in being mentally ill, but that won't stop prejudice. So just embracing that, hey, I got some things going on. I'm going to embrace them and I'm going to deal with them and go judge somebody else, and standing firm on that. Yeah. That's important. Again, prioritizing yourself, there's no shame in my game. I'm going to tell you, I went and got therapy during the pandemic. I went and got some counseling because I'm like, listen, I got to deal with some things, you locked up and everything and you're feeling anxious and all this, I got some things I got to deal with. Yes. And so no shame in my game. So
and the difference is people admit it and some of them don't, because everybody's going through something out here. So rest assured in that, like, even if people look at you a certain type of way, at least you're acknowledging it. At least you're saying something.
Exactly. Number 8, there might be some moments of failure. There might be some moments where things just might not go right, and that's okay. You just got to press forward. Maybe you're really trying to control your anger, but that one time that, it's the keep going part. It's the, maybe it's not okay because now you got to apologize and you got to, pull it back, but it's the keep going part. It's the being accountable, being responsible, and keep going.
Especially as sometimes we have to be the example for little eyes. Yes. So yes, we have to go back and correct it. We need to go back and apologize.
Yeah. And number 9, at the end of the day, your mental health, your mental illness, or your mental health will evolve and will change over time. So whatever, your mental health may look like now, may not look like that tomorrow, especially if you're working on it. If you're working to heal, if you're working to do better, where you right now will not be where you're at next year. I mean, it's almost like losing weight, right? You actively work on,
Yes.
being different, looking different. So why not actively work on thinking different, feeling different, making different decisions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The work is always necessary and rewarding.
Agreed.
And remember to reflect back on the work that you've done, because we can get so caught up in working on our healing. Now we forget that we're here to just be.
Right. And how far you've come, and just say, and being grateful in that moment for that, and just spending some time in feeling grateful, and it's okay. I used to feel guilty about feeling grateful. Like that was something that I had to reprogram. I used to feel guilty about feeling grateful that I was like in a good place. Like sometimes you'd be like, I'm in a good place right now.
Yeah.
Like things all seem to be kind of lining up right now for me. And, I used to feel guilty about feeling good, like feeling like I don't have like a problem. And so I think I subconsciously used to seek out people who have problems just so I can then
be like, yep, see, I shouldn't have felt good right then. Yes.
Or try to help, but I had to
thing.
realize it's okay to be at peace with feeling good in a moment of whatever, I had to be able to sit with that.
That is a thing.
Yeah. So just leaving you guys with not really a word of the day, but just some words of encouragement. We've all gone through some things as children. Some of us have gone through childhood trauma that, as adults is really kind of maybe causing us to be a little dysfunctional, or really is taking us off the path of where we want to be as adults and what we want to project out to the world as, a functioning adult. And so I encourage anyone that, has come to that realization to go get some help. Come back next week. We'll talk about, therapy, benefits of therapy, the best ways to, ways to look for a therapist, how to find one that vibes with you. I want to thank so much my co-host, Miss Latricia Ali. Check her out on the socials. Join her for a class or two, yoga, pole, whatever your thing is. You can also follow me on Nurshar on IG, Nurshar RN, on Twitter, Nurshar RN, TikTok, Nurshar RN, and on YouTube and Facebook at My Better Living. Thank you so much to The Bird Cares for sponsoring this show, and thank you so much to Power Plug Radio for this live feed. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.
You're listening to Power Plug Radio, home of your throwback jams.
My Better Living. Spend some time with Nurshar for honest and healing conversation about the benefits, challenges, and real-life struggles of living healthy, well, fit, and free. Real discussion for real people who want real change. My Better Living. This podcast is being broadcast on Power Plug Radio, home of your throwback jams. You can download Power Plug Radio app on Google Play or the Apple iStore. Don't forget to subscribe to the Power Plug Radio YouTube, where you can catch My Better Living live every Tuesday night. And visit www